This is our first CEO forum. We have Ed Bastian, from CEO of Delta, Venessa Harrison, who's the CEO of AT&T in Georgia, and Frank Blake, who now is a philanthropist, but former and retired Chairman and CEO of the Home Depot. Okay, so I'm going to ask one question of everybody, and then I'm going to have individual questions specifically to each person. So share with us your philosophy around corporate generosity, Frank.
So first, Rick, thanks for putting all this together. Thanks for being the driving force on this. It's a great thing for companies, I think, small, medium, large, to pause and think about generosity and think about what they're doing in the community. I'll give a simple answer from my perspective. Employees want to be proud of the place they work. And there's a great phrase, I don't know exactly where it comes from, that we make a living by what we get and we make a life by what we give. And given the amount of time that folks spend at work, they want a life as well as a living. And that's something that generosity from a corporate perspective provides.
I think corporate generosity is very important in terms of the employees and the community. Employees feel connected to the company when we are out serving in the communities in which they live, work, and play. Corporate generosity, for me personally, is very important because I truly believe that to whom much is given, much is required. And I think, like our company and any other company, much has been given to us in these companies because we are still thriving today and we're still having great earnings. But I also believe that it is very important in terms of giving back to the communities to help enhance the lives in which not only our employees live, but the customers that we serve live.
And Rick, I also want to thank you for having me here. For us and for me personally, it's embedded in our culture at our company. It's we're a values-based culture. We're a servant-led organization. We realize that our people are 80,000 worldwide. They're proud when they see the causes that we represent, and it's more than the dollars. It's the actual giving of ourselves, our arms, our legs, our hearts to the various missions that we support. So for us, it's just who we are. It's what we do with the community. We're a big company. We have 200 million customers a year. It's our obligation to give back to them. I also think it's the smart thing to do. Today's consumers want to do business with companies that do good things. And I think the younger generations, the millennials, our upcoming consumers, even more so. They're values-based, and rightfully so. And so for us, while we don't do it for that reason, there's also a very important, to your point, is there a business reason you do it? The answer is absolutely yes. Not why we do it, but it has a great knock-on benefit.
So Frank, you came into that, and then to that environment that already had a culture. And so what did you do to modify what was already there?
Bernie and Arthur Blank had a very strong set of values that drove the Home Depot and frankly made the Home Depot the success it is. And if you go into a Home Depot, where I'm sure you spend all your weekends, you'll notice that the aprons have what we call our values wheel. So there are 8 values on the wheel. One of them is giving back to the community. And the main change I made was focusing it. So we were pretty broad-based in what we did, and because of the lack of focus, it didn't have quite the pickup that we wanted. And so we picked one thing to really, we do a few other things, but one thing to put most of our weight behind, and it was veterans causes, and that reflects our store associates. So it's something that connects with them, that they get excited about, and fuels what we do, both at a local level with our store-based giving back, and then also at a corporate level. So it was focusing in on veterans' needs, rebuilding homes, fixing up homes, and they're just great stories that Home Depot has every single day in terms of what we do with the veteran community.
All right, Venessa, can you have a really interesting background, very inspirational to me. So I was just wondering, could you tell a little bit about your story and how maybe that's impacted the way you think about corporate philanthropy?
I grew up in low-income housing projects and with 9 siblings and a single mom who was the rock star of our life. I didn't even know that I was poor until I got in high school. My mother used to always say that when you hear people label you as at risk, just remind yourself that you are at risk of doing great things. It's because of corporate generosity, we were able to take advantage of learning experiences for us to advance. And so my upbringing, growing up in low-income housing projects, that is one of the reasons that I'm very passionate about what we do. I can say to these kids, you know, I made it, you can make it. And it doesn't matter if you have just a mother or just a father or both. It's choices that you make. And you have to make the right choices. You know, I started AT&T as an operator, the lowest paying job in the company. It's where most minorities started. Being very strategic, I always kept saying, you know, I am going to do something to be successful that will allow me to, one, give back to my mother that has worked so hard for us, but to also give back to my community. And so I worked my way up from, without a degree at the time, from an operator to the president of North Carolina, and now to the president of Georgia.
That's great. So I had to make sure that people heard that.
Rick and I talked about that.
It's such an inspiring story to me to go from the bottom to the top. But I was just curious, you know, what have you done to make changes or modify, or, you know, what's different now about Delta's giving since you've gotten there?
Well, as many of you know, Delta's story, while not nearly as inspiring as Venessa's here, and we almost lost this company 15 years ago, very close to it, through a difficult bankruptcy and restructuring, a takeover battle and the like. And as we started to get our feet back underneath us and our momentum, and as our service level improves, we instituted for our people something we call profit sharing. It's effectively, it still stands to this day, roughly 15% of the profits of Delta go to our people. They get paid first, they get first fruits before any of the management or anyone else gets paid. And fortunately, for the last 5 years, that payoff has been over $1 billion a year. We paid on Valentine's Day. It's the happiest day of the year to fly Delta.
Right.
And
remember that.
and it's, you know, it's real money. I mean, this past year it was about $1.3 billion, about 14% of our employees' pay. And I'll be lying if I ever thought we'd get to this level of prosperity, but we'll accept it. But several years ago, and certainly in consultation with Frank, we said we need to do something more systematic around our community, because while we wanted to appreciate the good work our people did and share those rewards, we also wanted to have profit sharing in a sense for our community. And so a few years ago, we decided to institute the 1% program, such that today 1% of the profits at Delta go back into the community as well. And this past year, we contributed over $50 million into our community, you know, based, a lot of it's here in Atlanta, but around all the other places that we fly. And it's been phenomenal in terms of being able to pull our community into the success. So it's not about us, it's about everyone. And then this past year, we had an addendum to that where we said, you know, the money is great, but it's kind of easy to write a check, assuming you got the money.
That's right.
You know, but it's much harder to commit yourself.
That's right.
So we, on Profit Sharing Day this year, we instituted a new program and announced it so that every Delta employee worldwide would have a paid day off to go into the community and work at the charity or philanthropic effort of their choosing. And more than just the cash, you know, we're giving of ourselves. And so, yeah, and every time we take these steps, it just deepens the bond and the passion that our people have for the company, the love of what they do, because our community and our customers provide us the opportunity to serve. And it's been really an incredibly rewarding opportunity to be part of. And the passion that they have to, and the causes that we can talk about that we support along the way, just again brings them more pride and want to work even harder to take care of their customers, because they know the ultimate success is dictated by winning in the customer's eyes, not just our own.
Frank, you mind telling us the story about Andy Stanley and how that impacted the way that you kind of did employee recognition?
When I was made the CEO of the Home Depot, it was a very sudden event, not one that I was well prepared for. I was flying back from the event where the transition occurred, and on the company plane, and looking, really frankly, looking for help on thinking about what's this leadership and CEO thing all about. And my wife had a DVD from a set of leadership talks, and I put in the DVD and I'm watching it. And most of it, frankly, I missed it. They might have been great, but I didn't get it. But then I listened to Andy's description of what a leader does, which is to cast a vision and then celebrate and recognize those who are living that way, and then you live it yourself, and that those are a self-reinforcing circle. And I thought, that is a brilliant description of how you lead an organization, setting a vision and then celebrating and recognizing those who do it. And as it happened, we were just about to hold a store managers meeting, which is a big deal in a retail business. You know, we go to Las Vegas, there are thousands of people. And Andy happened to have sent me an email of being in a Home Depot in North Georgia. I read it to 2,000 plus store managers, and it kind of stopped everybody in their track and set a tone for the company for the next several years and to this day. And the story was a customer service story of someone checking out in the store in North Georgia, and they have a cart full of lumber, and the checkout person asking, as they're trained to ask, did you find everything you were looking for, and what project are you working on? And the person said, well, actually, I am building a coffin for my grandson who died. And she said, go on through. And that was the example of what it means for customer service. And that sort of repetition of what this customer service means, what it looks like, and then recognizing the people who provided it is what we did and continue to do at Home Depot. And it's as you reinforce those stories that you build the culture really from the ground up.
That's right.
And the customers feel it, and the associates, the employees feel it as
That's
well.
right.
Venessa, what was your favorite moment working with AT&T and giving back?
My favorite moment, I have to say, was several years ago when we were working on a broadband project, and we were deploying broadband out in the community. And part of that initiative was to be able to provide a wireless network in low-income housing. And so I was able to go back with my team, and we installed wireless broadband in the housing development that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
That
Full
was
circle.
an aha moment.
Yeah.
I was truly blessed to be able to do that. AT&T has a long history of philanthropic initiatives, education, obviously media and entertainment, health and human services. And, it is the culture, as we just talked about with Delta, it's the culture of our company. And without it, the employees are not productive because they're not happy. The morale is low. So I think that's all part of that pie that makes it complete.
Frank, we talked about positive stuff, but tell us, people that are trying to learn how to get in corporate philanthropy and so forth, tell us some things that didn't work that you wouldn't do again, or maybe some things you tried and so forth in philanthropy.
I think the question of focus versus letting people do what they want to do is a thing to wrestle with, and how you get that right balance. And I think you need to make space for both. I think you want to find, that was the learning from wrestling around with those and I think this is definitely a credit to Delta that there's both the focus, and you can see areas where they focus, but then also letting people follow their passions so they're increasingly, they see their work as an expression of being able to do what they want to do terms of helping the community. We wrestled with that, and I think at times we're either too prescriptive or too lax. And so I think finding that right balance is a big deal.
Balance. Vanessa, what could you tell us were things that weren't as productive that you would advise us not to do?
Well, I would advise not to just continuously do the same things that you've been doing all along, because you don't want to say no to someone that's requesting it. I think you have to do it in an all-inclusive manner, including your employees, but you got to also be intentional about being impactful. And sometimes we do get comfortable with, making the same decisions. And so what I try to do is to challenge my team. Challenge my team in terms of how is this going to impact the community and what is the return for them. But one of the things is that when corporations give, we got to ensure that we're not just giving to check the box. It needs to be very impactful, something that's going to impact the community. And one of the things that I am monitoring very closely is that we don't just give because it's the path to least resistance of saying no to someone. We need to make sure that we are giving where we're actually making a difference.
Do you have anything like Delta was talking about?
We do. We have an employee giving campaign, and it is an initiative where you make contributions, but you get to choose which contribution or which organization you want your dollars to be contributed to. And then we also have paid time off where employees are, they can take time off to work in whatever nonprofit or charitable organization that they choose. And then they log their hours, and then we have what we call the Celebrate Awards, where we celebrate them for going back and giving back and contributing to the community.
Well, I think focus is the right thing, and I think we've fallen into that trap in the past. And what we wound up is giving to an awful lot of causes, but only being an inch deep and a mile wide, and not having any real tangible benefit and impact from where we're going. So we've done the hard thing. We've pulled back from a number of organizations, which is not easy, but we went deep in several others that has had massive benefit for us. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, while it's nice to write the check, putting the service against the check, activates it, and it creates a much broader impact and following where your employees want to go. So one thing that our employees, we're hearing a lot of, and something that I've been personally very involved for the last probably 5-6 years, is the topic of human trafficking. And Delta has been a leader in our industry in human trafficking, and I'd argue in the country, in terms of, because we know it unfortunately it happens on our planes.
Yeah.
So whether it's the training in that respect, it's the supporting the organizations that are working in that dark, evil underworld, which is not easy to talk about. People don't like to talk about it publicly, and taking a stand against it is something that our people rally to the cause. So having, you've got to connect to where your people want to go with your financial donations, not just what the corporates may want to do.
You guys make it authentic, but how do you communicate both internally and externally to make sure it's not just like bragging or perceived as not authentic either?
So first off, I would lean into the internal communication. For any customer-facing organization, your very best brand spend is on your own employees, because they carry your brand in front of the customers. They ought to know, and we would communicate constantly to our associates, because there's no reason to expect them to know what we're doing in response to hurricanes, or what we're doing over here and what we're doing over there. The dominant mode of communication on that is internal, because the dominant benefit is, as I said at the start, the sense of pride and frankly, sense of oneness with the organization that you get from those generous activities. These are our colleagues. This is what they're doing. This is what's happening in our organization. You should be proud of it. I never thought that was inappropriate. I thought we couldn't do enough.
I think we're family. So we're going to share with our family members, this is what we are giving back in this community. As far as the external piece is concerned, I share that same concern about bragging. If you're doing it for the right reasons, then we need to be making heroes out of the recipient. And that's what I tell my team. This is a hero-making opportunity. Even in their times of despair, let's make a hero out of them by making contributions to whatever organization that's going to help. And then, if it's that meaningful, the recipient will do the press release and share the great work that you've done.
Ed, how do you?
Same. Internal communications is always the best way to get the message out. Let your employees be the ambassadors of the good news in their various ways, letting them know. Though I'll tell you, there are times when external is important, and I think the reason for it is to spur others to do their share as well. You know, there's great benefit, particularly in times of disaster, but in other times too, to put your brand out there, and it's almost a challenge. You got to be careful, and we don't do it often, but there is a benefit to the organizations being able to take, you know, the news that Delta is contributing or Delta is doing this work and challenge others to match them.
I remember one ad that was probably one of our most successful ads ever that reinforces that customers actually do care. The ad shows a road and a Home Depot truck going down the road and a storm off in one direction and clear weather in the other direction, and the truck heading to the storm. That is an image that we wanted to represent ourselves to our customers, and customers care. Customers do care. You have to be careful about it. There are lots of different ways, lots of interesting tripwires, but general communication about caring and contributing to the community is important, and I believe it goes beyond millennials. It's with everyone.
And I think that customers will show it when they see you being authentic. If you're truly authentic about what you're doing and you're giving for the right reasons, they will express their appreciation. And I do think, I agree with you, there are times when you need to do that press release because you need to challenge other corporations to say, you know, we're going to step up to the challenge to do this, and we want to encourage you to do the same, because the benefactor is the community. Right.
Well, we have a group, community affairs team that interfaces with our community partners. We bring them in. We try to make them part of the family. You know, they spend time with us. They educate us on what they do and why they do it, and it's by starting to partner with some of our team and collaborate. It's a partnership in the broad sense.
But I think that it is all about partnership. Long gone are the days when one person can just do it alone. And so with many of the nonprofits, we have many employee resource groups. And so they're constantly working with nonprofits and bringing the ideas back. And through them, we collaborate with the nonprofits and support specific initiatives that are out in the community. And it just helps us be good corporate partners, but it also enlightens them on what we're doing and the process that it takes to become a partner.
Oh, we do. Yeah. We match in the area of education. So if an employee is going to make a donation to an educational institution, we'll match that donation up to a set amount.
Yes. We made a small tweak in it, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, that's been, I will tell you, for us, that's been the most disappointing.
Yeah, it's not as many as you think.
You know, I mean, we raised the limit, I think, to 2,500 this year, and a lot of it's because they don't know about it, and I also think we internally made it too bureaucratic to figure out how to get the matching part and so forth. But we have a full-time person now that's trying to help on volunteerism, educate about that, and you know, we'll see somebody donate to something and say, well, would you like for us to match it?
I think, first of all, I don't really think that it matters whether you're small or large. I think giving back is the most important thing. I think also that collaborative type initiatives. I'll give you an example. We worked in the Living Well Center here, our AT&T employees, and we had over 500 employees out there giving, but there were also other small organizations and companies. So I think through partnering with other organizations makes a big difference.
Well, I've started a lot of small businesses. As a small business, I think you do what you can. You know, if you have no money, whether you give back, if you're a small accounting firm or a law firm or, you know, in a construction business or whatever, you know, give a nonprofit, you know, some of your time, your legal work, your accounting work, and some of those kind of things. And even as a small company, you can give back a little bit. Being involved with your people, your associates and so forth, even if it's little things, and even if it's just every once in a while, but it's a priority. So I think just give whatever you can.
I'll start. It's really important. You know, we're hiring a lot of people. We're hiring somewhere 5,000-6,000 people a year. You know, we look for what you know that individual has done in the world of service. I mean, we you know, how do they think about service? You can't teach service. You know, right. It's in your heart, and hospitality. There's a lot of technical stuff we do we can teach, but to actually have a heart to serve people. Mm-hmm. And at the levels that we do, it requires you know being part of your DNA, and it's high on our attribute list in terms of why we'd engage somebody. You know, the people we're hiring, you know, they're firefighters, they're kindergarten teachers, they're people that kind of they work in nursing homes. Yeah. They're coming out of a place where they do it because not because there's a lot of money attached to it. They really want to be around people and they want to serve others in a better way, and that pulls into our values and our culture.
I agree that, you know, service is very important in our industry. If you can't service in a way that makes your customers feel that you care and that you're customer focused and that you want to give back, then you'll never sell anything else to them. But more so than that, you know, we look for employees that are intentional about it and that they can show compassion. You have to be able to service the customers, and you just got to be authentic with it.